Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
Hi, it's Ed Cohen, your broadcast host on Global TV Talk Show. This is a service of globalbusinessnews.net. Please go and visit. Google Analytics has been measuring our page views, our audience traffic and involvement and behaviors to some extent since we started the site in 2003, and they say over 1.2 million page views have occurred since 2003 on globalbusinessnews.net. Hard to believe, isn't it? But they've measured also the video shows that we started in late March, and Google Analytics says over 75,000 reader page views from over 100 countries. So, hey, a lot of eyeballs, and we expect that number will grow somewhat because of the quality of this broadcast coming up right now. So, from Paris, France, Nathalie, Hellio, who's a partner and global advisor with HELMA International. I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly. Nathalie, please correct my French language effort.
Oh, come on. Thanks for having me. And I guess I'm the only non-Anglo-Saxon person. So, I will not challenge your French accent. You can challenge my English accent.
It's delightful to listen to. Are you a singer by any chance? Can you do a verse of La Vie en Rose?
Oh my God, no, I sing very, very.
Okay, well,
I'm half Spanish, so I can try in Spanish.
Okay.
It has been translated, but no, I'm kidding.
Well, this is a comedy act, really. It's a stand-up. No, actually, sit down, right? So Chase Eskelsen is an educator, and he's executive with Verano.org. Chase, why don't you do a much better job than me talking about the venture capital role and the management that you bring to the bridgeschool.net and your other properties, your other schools, and how they all tie into homeschooling, online accredited education globally. Is that right?
You're exactly right. Thank you so much for having me, Ed. Greetings from the great state of Texas. If you want, I'm happy to sing. I got a barbecue stain on my white t-shirt, but no, very happy to be back with you all again. And Verano Learning Partners is an education nonprofit that's been around for about 20 years. And we focus on a couple of different things. First and foremost, we run schools. So we have several schools that are up and running currently, whether it's hybrid or a full-time online school. We were kind of doing digital education before it became the cool thing to do in 2020. So our little niche of the world went mainstream very quickly. And the other part of what we do is we're looking for good partners and or potential acquisitions for future schools that we can support students and families all around the world. We have 2 campuses that are hybrid in the United States right now. And then we've got 1 full-time online international school. All of our schools are accredited. And the Bridge School, which is what we talk about most of the time here on your show, is NCAA eligible. So we have a lot of high-performing athletes and performers where that becomes a very important aspect of what they're looking for. They want that eligibility so that they can go into a United States higher ed institution and have all of the rights in positions that come along with being NCAA eligible in high school.
HELMA International is worldwide, right? You're based in Paris, but you're also active in India and Singapore and elsewhere, right?
Correct. Yes, we have a team in India, in China, and in Germany, and the big entities in France. However, we partner with many companies around the world because we render services in the relocation, immigration, and advisory area. So we cover all the spectrum of international mobility, but of course we cannot do everything ourselves. So we have a good network of partners that support us in other countries, around 300 DSPs that we're working with in other countries.
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, we produced a program, and HELMA International in India was one of our key speakers, along with people in Hong Kong and somewhere else. I can't remember right now. Too many shows. So your background was as a tax lawyer with Ernst & Young and further experience as an executive with Accenture. And all of this leads you to the world of international mobility. So very, very quickly, do you have an education partner such as Chase in France or in India or in Hong Kong, Singapore? This is a tee up.
Right. Well, we have many clients that are asking us for the best school, right? So we do surveys through our partners to try to find the most suitable school. For example, the French people love the Lycée Français, but you don't have that in all the countries. So I think that what you're proposing is very attractive. To be honest, I never heard about these online courses that you give. So I think it's a very good alternative when people can find, the correct school. Maybe they are in remote locations. So very happy to hear about your business.
So down the bottom is this chat thing here. If you can click on that. Chase, why don't you send your website or the bridgeschool.net over, and so Nathalie can look at it at her leisure. John Schuldt is an auto industry executive for many years, lived in Japan and Asia with Ford Motor and also Mazda, and was a president of the American Chamber in Seoul, correct? Or in Japan?
In Seoul, the American Chamber of Commerce in Korea.
Yeah, okay, great. And so did you do business when you were relocated? Were you involved with HELMA International?
No, we did not. We had a company, we used to come, Ford Motor Company, used a company called Brookfield. The first time I went to Japan, it was actually all in-house. Ford had its own mobility, they didn't call it mobility back then, but it was part of HR. And they were responsible for all Ford Motor Company international relocations around the world. That was in 1996. By the time I went back to Japan in 2001, Ford had outsourced to Brookfield. And we also, when I went to Korea, I think we had switched to Cartus, which is another global service provider for a global relocation management company.
And John, sorry to interrupt, but what is interesting is that HELMA bought Brookfield in France.
Oh.
So their office in France, they didn't want to have a DSP anymore. So as a RMC, they were working with different DSP, and HELMA bought, Brookfield. So now we work also with BGRS. Right.
And BGRS is one of our partners with the present company that I work for.
Yeah, so what John does, Nathalie, is he helps people get into cars, relocatees,
Right.
and on a lease or rental basis. Chase, did you have a school tie-in in France?
We do not currently have a school tie-in. One thing I will say is we've been working with another entity, ISC Research, and they have been looking for some different partners for us. One of the things that I think is unique about what we can offer is we've been in the digital space for 20 years. So this isn't our first rodeo, as they say in the great state of Texas, but it definitely is something that we feel very passionate about. How do we take the very best of that digital education and pair that with the very best of what can happen in a building? And so our focus really has shifted to being a hybrid or blended over the last couple of years. And the Bridge School, while the school itself is full-time online, our desire is to get large groups of students in a nearby location and then go in and stand up a hybrid site. So for instance, in Honduras, we have a large number of students, and we were able to set up a hybrid site in that location. We have another site in Ireland. So we have them spread out where we do have sites set up, and then we partner with existing schools. One of the things we've seen, and Ed, I know we've talked about that. John, I'm sure you've been on one of the calls where we've talked about that. There's a lot of these big, giant expat schools that are basically empty. You know, so many of these families they've been repatriated. And so we are going in with a solution saying, hey, you keep running your school. Let us help you with the online program of your school through the Bridge School. And it helps to continue bring that funding in to get them through, 2020 and probably 2021 until they can get their students back in country on site at their location. So we've got a lot of different options, and that's probably one of the things that makes us unique is we're in the business of solving problems, not taking over and running everything the exact same way. Let's figure out a way to make it work for everyone.
So in the news, especially with this resurging of COVID, the work from home, the school from home, is the answer to take away the pressure of parents having to deal with, how do I homeschool my kid? I got to deal with this, I got to deal with that. This is a major mental health issue, never mind an education issue. Chase, it's a solution. What you guys are doing is a solution for this, but not a lot of people know about it. Of course, I'm really happy to promote it on our shows, but you would think that the media, the news industry would learn more about what you guys are doing and how valuable it is. This is not I'm not buttering you up for anything. I've already done that, but really, you've done this thing for a long time and it works. And so I would think that you've got a really strong social need with your product, which is a very unique combination. And John's product, what companies that are sending people internationally, a car is a new car, shiny new car, new place. God, it's an employee benefit, right? And so
it is a good benefit, Ed, and a lot of international relocations, that is part of the package, where an employee has a certain lifestyle in their home country, and when the company assigns them to a host country, the agreement is they will have a similar lifestyle to what they had in their home country. So that includes automobiles, home appliances, schooling. All of that is provided. I had 3 international relocations during my career with Ford, and we were assigned and 2 to Japan and 1 to South Korea. So very different cultures and very different styles of housing than what we have in the West. But we were provided with Western style accommodations, Western sized appliances, obviously an automobile. And so that's what today with the company that I'm with, we help fulfill that part of the agreement from a lifestyle standpoint to allow someone to finance a new vehicle in their new country. And we do that around the world. We've been doing it for 25 years.
So with that in mind, we're going to take a very quick break in the production. And now a word from our co-sponsors. Our programs wouldn't happen without the wonderful support of our advertisers. Here they are.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
Cube Monk, featuring the world's first smart cube. Track your goods with our advanced GPS system. Welcome to the future of moving and relocation at cubemonk.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by heirs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at heirs.com.
Insured Nomads provides protection and peace of mind with health insurance, travel insurance, group, or tailored insurance for the globally mobile. Visit us at insurednomads.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Hi, my name is Christine. I'm a nurse from the Philippines, and I got to know IAS through Worldwide Health Staff Solutions. And I want to thank IAS, especially to Matthew, for helping me get my car stress-free, headache-free. And so I just want to show you the car that I got. So it's a RAV4 XLE 2020.
As an expat moving to the USA, relocating is exciting, but it can also be stressful. Getting a car, truck, or SUV for personal transportation is usually a high priority. That's where International Auto Source comes in. We make getting the vehicle you want for your work assignment or academic program easy, so you're ready to drive when you arrive. Our product specialists have helped over 50,000 expatriates with their personal transportation needs, making us the largest international auto retailer in the world. International Auto Source gives you flexible payment options to buy, lease, or rent a vehicle from the world's leading auto brands, arrange financing on a purchase or lease without a U.S. credit history, social security number, or driving record, Get full insurance coverage and get approved easily through our low-rate factory-backed financing programs. And because we're an authorized distributor of the world's leading automotive brands, our no-haggle prices are competitive, and the buying experience is hassle-free. We'll even guarantee your new vehicle will be ready the day you arrive. With over 20 years of experience in the global community, we are the vehicle experts for expats. We are International Auto Source.
We're back. Okay. HELMA International is a large organization, been around for a number of years. I've met Ghislaine in the past, and very future-oriented. I remember probably, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe more, when I was producing one of our Paris meetings, he attended, and then we've had some other people from within HELMA speak at our events, and that was a long time ago. So today, with COVID, you can't go anywhere, right? Everybody's locked in, but some companies have recently relocated some people, right?
Right. We saw a lot of different situations depending on the clients, and I did a survey on this, saying that the international mobility experts or the HR people became logisticians, right? Because they had to understand who wanted to come back first with their family, or send just the family back and the expat was staying in the host country. Could they come back because the borders were closed? Could they return because the immigration papers expired or couldn't be renewed and they were stopped at the borders with the family in the other countries? So yes, we were quite busy in, I would say, assisting the HR people to take the right decision. But from my experience, what I saw is the companies were quite flexible to give a choice to the employee on what they wanted to do. So we had to relocate sometimes just the family, but they didn't have a home back in their home country because they left and they gave their home to rent or whatever. So we had to find temporary housing for these people. And then there was the lockdown and they couldn't move to a more decent apartment because they couldn't visit it. And we had to wait until they could go for the visit. So it was interesting times. But yes, we support our client. And interestingly also, people start to think about their policies, right? We are hearing now more remote workers, the work from anywhere, the short terms, there will be less long term. We don't know exactly. There are a lot of surveys going on, but I think the companies are going to reshape their policies. For example, addressing all the risk regarding not only immigration, but also labor law and taxes when you are working temporarily in another country. It's big challenges. And we saw clients coming saying, I have the time now that I have covered my logistics and I know where my expats are, etc., to think ahead on what I want to put in my policies. What happens in terms of taxes? I'm going to tax equalize the short-term people. Will they be taxable? So it gives other opportunities in the advisory sector when I have to say that, yes, for immigration and relocation, we struggle a little bit with the close of the borders.
Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen after the first? Of course, there'll be more people getting vaccinated, but do you think things will open up and you can look in through your telescope and look at January, February, March? Or do you think it's just going to be more in the summer?
Probably what we see also now is that our clients are in a wait and see mode, and some of the budgets are frozen. So it's a little early to see, but I am an optimistic person, because I don't know if you remember with the financial crisis in 2008 or back in 2009, when we say that's the end of the golden expat packages, right? We will only see commuters, short term. It's the end of global mobility. We're not. It restarted, and my God, it was, these last 10 years, we haven't seen so many expats than in the past. So I think that maybe what will be the driver also is the cost. And adjusting the policies, as I was saying, because what happens if you have to pay back for a family and you didn't anticipate that? Normally the HR people, they will have to pick up the costs that were not anticipated. So I think in the policies we're going to see more and more around this, but also what I think is going to happen is that the big companies, of course, are measuring their budget and their, ROI on their expats, but smaller companies are not. So now they will really want to project the cost, and it's where we see a big success in our digital compensation tool, Smart Expatriation, where a lot of clients are coming saying, what happens if I send this person in this country instead of these other countries, because I would like to have a good estimate of the cost. And these digital tools are going to become very powerful.
So from a tax lawyer's point of view, how are governments, how are companies handling work from home or virtual assignments?
Well, what is funny is that so far, in terms of taxes, we are still with a physical presence, right? So you pay taxes and social security in the country where you are working. And then you have double tax treaties, social security agreements to avoid, duplicating costs, et cetera, et cetera. So technically, a person that has returned to their home country or has decided to work in a third country because they have family there, they could become taxable in this country just because they were doing their work remotely. So what we have seen, and particularly in Europe, it's some agreements that have been signed, and the EU regulation push for that, saying, well, if it's temporary and it's due to the crisis, people didn't have the intent to work from there. So please don't add taxes and costs to what is already costly for the companies. And we have seen these agreements between borders that we have in France, between Belgium and France, Luxembourg, and all these commuters, where they cannot spend back more than 30 days, for example, in the other country, otherwise they become taxable in this country. We have seen some relaxation from the authorities. So in terms of also being a tax resident in a country, again, even if you live in a country, because it's temporary due to the crisis, in principle, the tax authorities are going to be quite, I would say flexible, and don't consider that you become a resident for that. But all the countries are not like that. So it has to go country by country. And I think there are going to be surprises that some people are going to be chased by the authorities just because it's physical presence. We're not yet in the world where, everybody is taxed when they generate from where they generate revenues. We'll probably come to that in some years with all the virtual assignments, as we say.
Yeah, thank you very much for that deep dive. I want to ask for your opinion and some insight. I'm sitting here. I happen to be in a condo in Maui, Hawaii, and it's just getting light out here this time of day. And you're in Paris and it's already evening. And are the Christmas lights on Champs-Élysées up, and everywhere else?
I have to say yes, but it's a little bit lower, I will say, less lightly than in previous years, because I think we are making savings, and I think the governments want also to lead by example. So I don't know how it is in the other countries, but we could see that we don't have as many lights. And what is very sad is that we don't have tourists. So the Champs-Élysées, as you say, is the place where, everybody goes when they come to Paris. And now it's really empty from tourists. It's quite sad. I think this Christmas will be very different from others in all the countries, not only in Paris.
So let's change the topic a little bit quickly about diversity and inclusion. Paris and Europe, with your experience, are companies, European companies, pushing out diversity, D&I, as they call it, through assignments Are they looking for people of different backgrounds, colors, languages, cultures to send on assignment, or are they just saying, "Oh, we got enough problems, we're just going to pick the person who we're comfortable with"?
No, well, from what I see in all the big multinationals, and it's true again in smaller companies, mobility is now it's it's HR management, it's talent management. And so what I saw in previous years where there was an incentive to go on assignment abroad, right? You had to pay a premium or something to ensure that people were happy and were getting something because they made the effort, let's say, to be assigned abroad. And now it's becoming something very natural, and you don't even have an incentive for that. Of course, you have all the destination services, as Chase and John mentioned, right? Assistance for school finding, for cars, housing, etc. But you don't get a bonus anymore to go abroad. It's part of your CV. It's also because it's good for you. You're going to develop skills. You're going to bring something to the other entities in your group. And I think, yes, it has become something that to become a leader in Accenture, for example, when I was there, you had to be exposed to an international assignment, because then you will understand the culture, you will understand so many things about the company, that it was a step that people had to take in your career. And I see this more and more. Now, the other story, I thought you were going to ask me this question, is what we see currently in France. And I don't know if you have heard in the States, a new law that is going to be debated right now about the inclusion, that they don't want to call inclusion, but is, how do you deal with people that comes from, other countries, have been around for some years, but are not completely living with the same style, or don't have the same religion than the French one. And we want, to make sure that these people are comfortable, but there are some people saying, you shouldn't even try to integrate them because they are different, let's say. So we have a lot of debates right now, which is very sad in a sense, because we are also, very diverse community in France, people coming from different background for historical reasons, right? But it is an interesting topic. Now, what I see also is the switch in mentality is that, I was reviewing the thesis of a student, because I give courses at university, and it was around the French mentality in going to another country. I mean, 30 years ago, people were afraid to move. Now the French, new generation, but even the executives, they are really willing to take the experience, and they are raising their hand to go abroad, which brings me to the company needs to have a set of policies and segmentation of policies, because when it's an assignee asking for, an employee asking for a move abroad, is not the same that if the company has choose you and you are the ideal person to go abroad. Maybe the package is more generous in the later situation than in the first one.
So what is your business doing in the Middle East, particularly UAE?
What we do in UAE, we work with some partners to render umbrella services. The difficulty, as you may know, in these countries is that generally to work there, to go on assignment for a few years, you need to have a local employment contract, right? And then you need to have a sponsor for your visa. And if you don't have a local entity, which happens when you are starting a business, for example, so you don't have a subsidiary, you don't have a branch, you send a person there. You're looking for an entity that can host, right, the employee, sponsor the visa, provide an employment contract, and pay the employee, right? We don't have taxes in Middle East, which is great, but there's a little bit of social security, and you have to do the payrolling. So we work with our partners to render these umbrella services.
Interesting. John, when you were involved in Asia, working there, and particularly your involvement as CEO, president of the American Chamber of Commerce. How did you, well, how many Americans, white guys, were there? You know, did you stick out like a sore thumb, or were you welcome as a flower?
Well, I'd say neither. But at least for Korea, the Korean culture values education. And so it's very normal for Koreans to send their children overseas to boarding schools, to UK, Australia, Canada, United States. So you have, and then that leads to university education. And the Korean, and I'm being kind of general here, but the Koreans that do that, that follow that path, are able to be attuned and in tune with Western thinking and how Western companies can and do operate. So as Nathalie was saying about assignments, what you'll find is that, for example, an American company will hire as a senior level executive, a Korean national who's been educated in the US and who speaks fluent English. And then they don't even have to pay a bonus or a relocation package because it's a local hire. So I saw that. I first went to Korea in 2012 with a Ford Motor Company, and I retired from Ford and became president of AmCham Korea. In the 5 years that I was in Korea, I saw a significant reduction in the number of foreign expats leading companies or in senior level, C-level positions, and a commensurate increase in the number of Koreans who took those positions. Because from a corporate standpoint, if you have two people equally educated, two people who can speak the language, yet putting an American there is going to cost the company an extra $500,000 a year in terms of benefits and housing and schooling and flights, versus hiring the Korean national who is very happy to work in a Western environment, a Western culture. The companies moved to hire Koreans. So it was definitely a trend that I saw in the 5 years that I was there.
Chase, all of this leads to continuing education. So who knows, there may be a new school here developing.
It's an interesting idea. You know, there's a lot to both of the conversations that just happened. And, you know, I think that there's probably some way for us to jump in and support one of these entities from the high school perspective. How do we align the high school needs of local industries and set up students for future success?
Interesting stuff. So, Nathalie, thanks for being our special guest today. Let me ask you a question about the topic that I'm covering with Studi. Do you know Studi in LA? She's background Indian, of course, but introduced me to her. And so she and I are going to be talking about this concept called design thinking, right? Where you put pieces of paper on the ideas, I don't know, but about how it's applied to mobility and, you know, how to redesign, reinvent mobility so that it better fits in with the business and not be some service down the hall. So from your experience, especially at Accenture, you probably thought through this a long time ago. And so now it's with the younger generation in the workforce doing game theory, you know, design thinking is like a game, playing a game of moving ideas around and through a collaborative effort, coming up with a new decision, like redesigning the elephant or something. Yeah. Something that's called donut, you know, the donut idea of thinking, the way you design, how you visualize a problem, and all the things moving around the outside of the donut and the inside of the donut. So how do you think talent mobility management is going to change over the next 12 months?
As I said, I am an optimistic person, so I did a lot of design thinking also in Accenture, of course, and with my teams. But here, what I like to do is to collect a little bit all the ideas that I see, because as I was saying, there were so many surveys about what have we learned around for international mobility changes, right? Because of the pandemic, blah blah blah. And one thing, if there is one thing that makes me positive, is that I think it has highlight and increased the profile of the international mobility experts. Because, well, we all tend to change that, you know, when I was in a corporation, but sometimes we're seeing as people that are moving papers, very administrative, right? I mean, you need to, John, for example, you need to exchange your driving license, right? Because of course you cannot drive more than 12 months in a country with the license of your other country. So, and then we were here saying, you know, you cannot come tomorrow because you need to have a work permit and you cannot work on a business visa. Be careful, there will be tax implications, etc., etc. So we were seeing a little bit as making things complex, because we had to explain compliance, the risk, etc., to convince people that it was, you know, important to invest in international mobility, in-house experts, and use vendors, and you know, be supported by companies that render these services or do what you can do in-house. And I think this is something important, because this, you know, C-suite, the stakeholders have seen the good job and all the interactions that you're dealing with. I mean, when you are a mobility expert or an HR person, you have to understand first, you know, your package and all the services that you can render. Well, John, I didn't know the services you are rendering. Chase, you know, schooling, yeah, there are even online schooling. So you have to know about, you know, what you want to offer to your employees, do benchmark, etc. Also need to understand a little bit about immigration, about taxes, about labor law. Now in Europe, we have this directive on equal pay. So you need to understand what is a minimum salary. Is it the legal minimum salary, the bargaining agreement salary? It's a nightmare, right? And I think putting all this on the table, because of the pandemic, where do you make the choice? It costs money, yes, but it's so important to have the right health coverage for our people, because they're returning to a home country where they're not contributing anymore. You need to, you know, make sure that they file a tax return because they have become taxable, whatever. I think, and that's my hope, because in all the teams, when I was in Accenture, for example, my teams were taking every day some decisions. Some were small, you know, there is an exception, an escalation for a budget. Can I have a school that is out of the budget, for example, and does the employee pay the difference or not? Can I have an extra car, whatever? But there were decisions that were more important, you know. Do you decide to repatriate a person or not? Because he's reaching a threshold and is going to become taxable. What happens if the immigration documents have expired, but you need to have the guy still a few days? Do you take this risk or not? And sometimes it was, you know, easy for maybe the decisioners of or the managers to close, not the manager, I would say upstairs, right? The big decision people to say, you know, deal with that. I don't care. But if you have exposure, if there is a risk that comes and you are on the press, for example, I'm thinking about immigration and labor law, that's criminal responsibility, right? You need to make sure that you have a good governance model and that you have guidelines. And where do you want to, you know, draw the line so that your teams that are managing mobility knows what they can do or not. And from what I'm hearing, now people are starting to be recognized by the stakeholders, saying, guys, you have managed this crisis. We have to rethink about maybe the policies, etc. And we have to give you, hopefully, more budget to do properly your job, because we understand you need technology, you need good platforms to manage your people and know where they are, at every time. You need to have a good health coverage, a pension, international pension plan, etc., etc. So I think it has increased the visibility of these people, and that's positive for me, despite all the, terrible things they had to manage in a very short time frame and the uncertainty that is still here.
Nathalie, thank you for this deep dive into HELMA International and your own views and the European Parisian perspective of this. John Schuldt, don't shovel any snow. There must be a kid out there to help you.
And, I just want to comment on what Nathalie just said from my personal experience, if I could. There's time.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, Nathalie, your comments about I'll call it HR bureaucracy or global mobility bureaucracy were really resonated with me. The first time I went to Japan was 1996, and I was a middle manager at Ford Motor Company. And I wound up getting in arguments with HR professionals because it wasn't clearly explained to me up front, here's the policies, here's the procedures. It was almost very cursory because Ford Motor Company moves so many people around the world so often. And each time the next two times that I moved overseas, the process was much more robust, and the expectations were managed. And I think, the future of talent mobility, global talent mobility, the idea of managing the expectations, whether it's a 6-month assignment or a more traditional 3-year assignment, that's something that's really important for mobility professionals. And I think I see that now being on the other side, being a supplier to mobility companies such as yours, I see that even more, where that management of expectations of the assignee becomes so important. And I think that's a tremendous improvement in the space that I've experienced firsthand, and now that I'm seeing it from the other side of the curtain.
Right. And we don't have time to talk too much about smart expatriation, which is our compensation digital tool. And I will send you the link. It's exactly what you're saying, John, is that the reports that we give are understandable both by HR and by the employee. Because when you are negotiating a package, sometimes you can go to some tools and the HR or mobility people will say, well, this is the gross up, so I add this. The guy wants to see the computation, right? On which item do you apply the cost of living differential? What's my savings? What's my spendable? And if you go and you see the reports, we have 60 countries with more than 3,000 combination, cost of living allowances, housing, etc. On the site, there is even a freedom version of people will not get all the details, but they know that if they make $50,000 a year in the US and they want to come to France, well, maybe they need to get 80,000, right? Because the cost of living, depending on the states they're coming from in the US, Paris is more expensive, etc. And when this tool was set up 6 years ago, there was already this vision that we need to educate people that are not very familiar, right? Because you can send an engineer, you can send people that don't understand anything about taxes or the cost of living, and they're very happy to receive, a salary that seems higher. And the legibility and the user-friendly reports are extremely important.
So you should write in the chat the website so people could see this new app. And I'm glad you brought that up. Chase, would you like to do a summary here for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, I'll add to the conversation quickly and do a brief summary. But thinking about what global mobility is going to look like moving forward, I think the one thing that really stuck out to me was that a lot of people realize you don't have to be in a specific location for this specific job that we've posted. And one of the things that I think is likely to change is the understanding of what an office will look like, what is required to happen on the grounds of that building or the campus. Here in Texas, we have seen a huge influx of new buildings coming in up until 2020. Toyota just moved their headquarters here. We've got JCPenney and the Lay's potato chips, and all these companies are moving and coming into Plano, Texas, Frisco, Texas. And now 2020 has happened, and those huge campuses are completely empty. There's no one there. And they just invested millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I assume that it's going to be the same for the global families of companies as well. Like, what actually needs to happen in a building versus what can we do and save costs from having employees work remotely, and or some version of a hybrid, which, just like for schools, I think that the hybrid piece is really going to be where companies land. And the understanding of what is the most important thing that happens in this building, that's a question that we've asked ourselves time and time again from a school perspective. What is the most important thing that we do for these kids when they're in our buildings? And in some instances, and for some kids, it might be that we get them their math and their English and their reading and their history and their science. But then there's other kids, they might need something else. They might need some physical support, right? They might need access to a great school nurse. They might need their lunch provided. They might need some form of social emotional health in addition to all the other things that we're doing. So the question then from a business perspective is, what do we need people on site for? And while they're here, what is the most impactful thing we can have them doing? And so I really think that's going to be probably one of the most interesting aspects of 2021 and beyond, is where does all this land and what happens when people are together?
So the younger generation, say they call it Gen Z, which are kids just out of college or just about to leave college. They're super tech oriented, very comfortable with diversity, and yet they have a lot of, they're careful. They're conservative almost, small c. And because they're just feeling their way through, and they look around them and they see all this duplication and mismanagement and confusion. They're very used to, my research, the Gen Z people are very, very used to just doing everything online quick, getting it fast, getting it organized, looking for recommendations from people who have some experience, because they themselves have very little experience. And they're not trusting, generally, of people with a white beard in particular, and all those in between. So this is a whole new world we're dealing with, and they're going to populate these empty buildings one way or another eventually. But I think things will be different. I thank you for being on the show here. This has been an education. HELMA International. When we come back into Paris, maybe in a year from now, and do a live hybrid meeting, I want you to be on the program and advise me in the interim. Nathalie, I would like you to come back on our program in January or February as we expand our destination series, where we're going to talk about different countries and what's going on in them. We've already done Greece, we've done India, we've done Hong Kong, we'll be doing Mexico. We just did Brazil the other day. We have Argentina coming up. So we want HELMA International to be involved, of course. So thank you,
yeah,
Chase.
With pleasure.
Yeah. Bonsoir. Thanks very much for being on Global TV.
Thank you
Ciao.
for having me. Bye.
Bye.
Happy holidays,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.